Most people believe their biggest threat is a powerful enemy. They think danger comes from aggressive competitors, open critics, or obvious opposition. But in reality, most people don't lose power because others are stronger. They lose it because they quietly make their enemies stronger. Not through confrontation, not through conflict, but through exposure. Every time you reveal too much, every time you react emotionally, every time you make your patterns obvious, you make yourself easier to read. And the moment someone can read you, they can manage you. This is one of the most important principles of power, understood by Niccolo Machiavelli. Power does not shift when someone attacks you. Power shifts the moment you become predictable, because predictability creates control. If people know what hurts you, they know where to press. If they know how you react under pressure, they know how to provoke you. If they understand your emotional patterns, they know how to move you without force. And the most dangerous part is this: power is rarely lost suddenly. It erodes, slowly, through small visible behaviors, through oversharing, through quick reactions, through unnecessary explanations, through emotional exposure that feels honest, but is strategically careless. Many people believe their openness makes them authentic. They believe sharing everything makes them trustworthy, relatable, and strong. But good intentions are often misused by strategic observers. Because the issue is not honesty, the issue is undisciplined honesty. There is a difference between being real and being readable, between being authentic and being exposed, between being transparent and giving others a map of your weaknesses. In competitive environments, whether social, professional, or personal, information is leverage. And every time you reveal your instability, your fears, your emotional triggers, or your internal conflicts before they are fully processed, you give others an advantage they did not earn. This video is not about becoming cold. It is not about becoming fake. It is not about hiding who you are. This is about discipline, psychological discipline, strategic visibility, and controlled disclosure. Today, you will learn 7 precise mistakes that quietly elevate others over you. Mistakes that look harmless, mistakes that feel honest, mistakes that most people make without realizing they are lowering their own authority. And more importantly, you will learn how to protect your influence without becoming distant, cruel, or emotionally closed. Because real power is not silence. Real power is selective expression. Before we begin, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I reveal wisely. Number 1, sharing unresolved struggles publicly. There is a difference between sharing a lesson and displaying a wound. Most people don't see that difference. They believe openness builds connection. They believe speaking honestly about their struggles makes them relatable, authentic, and human. And in the right context, that can be true. But timing determines whether vulnerability creates respect or reduces authority. The critical mistake is speaking about a problem while you are still emotionally inside it. When you talk about a struggle that you have not yet processed, your tone carries instability. Your words carry uncertainty. Your emotional state is still searching for relief, validation, or reassurance. And people can feel that. Even if they respond with sympathy, their perception changes, because influence is built on emotional stability. When others sense that your internal state is unsettled, they begin to question your strength, your judgment, and your reliability under pressure. This doesn't mean you should never speak about difficulties. The issue is not honesty. The issue is unfinished honesty. There is a powerful difference between these two statements. I went through a difficult period, and here's what it taught me. And "I'm struggling right now, and I don't know how to handle it." The first communicates growth. The second communicates instability. When you share a processed experience, the message is controlled. The emotion is regulated. The narrative shows resolution, insight, and strength. But when you share an active struggle, you are exposing your emotional position in real time. And once that position is visible, it becomes information. In supportive environments, that information may be treated with care. But not everyone operates from support. Some people observe quietly. They store what they learn. They remember your stress points, your fears, your doubts, and your moments of weakness. Later, under pressure or competition, that information becomes leverage. Another danger of public emotional processing is authority erosion. Authority is not about being perfect. It is about being steady. When your emotional state appears unstable in public spaces, your perceived reliability decreases. People begin to see you as reactive rather than grounded. Even if your skills remain strong, your psychological position weakens. Because in any environment, people trust stability more than honesty. This is why strategic individuals process privately and communicate selectively. They talk about outcomes, not emotional chaos. They share lessons after clarity, not during confusion. They reveal growth, not turbulence. Another factor is audience selection. Not everyone deserves access to your internal struggles. Emotional transparency should be earned, not broadcast. Trusted individuals who have proven discretion and loyalty are different from general audiences, co-workers, or social platforms. Public vulnerability creates permanent records. Private processing creates controlled relationships. And control protects influence. This does not mean hiding your humanity. It means protecting your emotional timing. Because when people see you only during the storm, they remember instability. But when they see you after the storm, they remember strength. The shift is simple but powerful. Share resolution, not emotional volatility. When your story communicates clarity instead of confusion, your experiences increase your authority instead of weakening it. Number 2, assuming fairness is universal. One of the fastest ways to strengthen your opposition is to assume that everyone thinks the way you do. Most people believe fairness is a shared value. They believe that if they act with balance, honesty, and good intentions, others will naturally respond the same way. But in reality, people operate by incentives, not ideals. Some value cooperation, some value advantage, some value loyalty, others value opportunity. When you project your standards onto someone who operates differently, you misread the situation. And misreading people creates vulnerability. This mistake usually shows up in the form of premature trust. You compromise early to show goodwill. You reveal your position to demonstrate transparency. You give concessions to keep things balanced. You assume the other person will meet you halfway. But if the other person is operating strategically, your fairness becomes information. They learn your limits. They learn your priorities. They learn how much pressure it takes for you to give ground. And once someone knows your threshold, they don't negotiate with you. They manage you. Another danger of assuming fairness is emotional expectation. When you believe others should act according to your standards, you become surprised when they don't. That surprise often leads to frustration, overreaction, or rushed decisions. And emotional reactions reveal your pressure points. Strategic individuals do not begin with trust. They begin with observation. Instead of assuming someone values balance, they watch how that person behaves when there is tension, disagreement, or competition. Because character is not revealed during smooth interactions. Character is revealed under pressure. Anyone can appear cooperative when there is no cost, but when stakes rise, priorities become visible. Do they protect mutual benefit or personal advantage? Do they honor agreements or adjust them when circumstances change? Do they stay consistent or shift positions when leverage appears? These patterns matter more than promises. Another common mistake is early compromise. Many people believe that giving something first creates goodwill and encourages reciprocity. Sometimes it does, but with strategic personalities, early compromise signals flexibility without resistance. Instead of creating trust, it lowers your perceived negotiating strength. They don't see generosity, they see room to push further. Positioning matters. When you hold your ground calmly and avoid unnecessary concessions, you communicate stability. You show that cooperation is possible, but not automatic. That balance earns more respect than early accommodation. The goal is not suspicion, the goal is clarity. Trust should be built on observed behavior, not assumed character. This requires patience. Strategic patience means allowing people to reveal their patterns over time. Small inconsistencies, subtle boundary tests, and pressure responses provide more accurate information than words ever will. Once you understand someone's incentive structure, your decisions become more precise. You know when to collaborate. You know when to limit access. You know when to protect your position. And, most importantly, you stop expecting fairness from people who are operating by advantage. Because expectations create emotional exposure, observation creates control. When you stop projecting your standards onto others and start studying their incentives, you remove one of the biggest ways people quietly gain leverage over you. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I observe first. Number 3. Reacting to subtle provocation. Not all attacks are loud. The most effective ones are quiet. A small comment delivered with the wrong tone, a slight interruption, a dismissive look, a casual joke that feels just a little personal. These are not accidents. In many environments, subtle provocation is used to test emotional control. It is not meant to create conflict. It is meant to study your reaction, because reactions reveal sensitivity, and sensitivity creates leverage. Most people think power is shown through strong responses. They defend themselves quickly. They correct the comment. They explain their position. They adjust their tone to show they were affected. But the moment your emotional state becomes visible, information is exposed. A slight shift in your voice, a longer explanation than necessary, a defensive clarification, visible discomfort. These are micro-reactions, and strategic observers pay attention to them. They are not focused on the words you use, they are studying what moves you. If a small comment changes your energy, they learn where your emotional boundaries are thin. If you rush to defend your competence, they learn you're sensitive about status. If you react to mild criticism, they learn pressure works on you. Once someone identifies your triggers, they don't need to challenge you directly. They only need to apply subtle pressure in the right place. That is how leverage is created without confrontation. The real danger is that most people react automatically. They don't pause. They don't evaluate the intent. They respond emotionally because the moment feels personal. But power lives in delayed response. When you control timing, you control visibility. Instead of reacting immediately, you allow space. You let the moment pass. You observe the context. Was the comment intentional? Was it a test? Was it casual or strategic? That pause protects your emotional position. Calm neutrality creates uncertainty for the other person. They don't get the feedback they were looking for. They cannot measure your sensitivity. They cannot confirm whether their attempt had any effect. And when someone cannot read your emotional impact, their ability to manage you decreases. Silence, when controlled, is not weakness. It is emotional discipline. Another important factor is emotional economy. Every visible reaction costs psychological positioning. The more often your emotions shift in response to small stimuli, the easier it becomes for others to influence your state. But when your emotional baseline remains steady, your reactions become rare, and rare reactions carry weight. If you remain calm through minor pressure, but respond firmly when something truly matters, people learn that your reactions are deliberate, not automatic. That perception increases your authority. It also changes future behavior around you. When subtle provocations fail to produce visible results, people stop testing you. There is no feedback, no leverage, no advantage to gain. Consistency in emotional control creates a protective barrier. Another mistake people make is over-explaining after a perceived slight. They try to correct how they were seen. They add context. They justify their reaction. But justification signals impact, and impact confirms sensitivity. Sometimes the strongest response is no visible response at all. Control your timing. Control your expression. Control what others are allowed to measure, because the less they can read your emotional pressure points, the harder it becomes to move you. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I stay composed. Number 4. Over-explaining your decisions. Many people believe that the more they explain, the more they will be understood. So they add context, they add reasoning, they add background, they repeat their logic in different ways, hoping clarity will create acceptance. But excessive explanation does not increase authority, it reduces it. Because the psychology of over-explaining sends a hidden message: I need you to agree with me. The moment your communication sounds like you are seeking validation instead of stating a decision, your position weakens. Others begin to sense uncertainty, even if your choice was correct. Authority is not measured by how detailed your explanation is. It is measured by how confidently you can stand behind a clear statement. When your decisions come with long justifications, multiple reassurances, and repeated clarifications, people don't just hear your reasoning, they hear your hesitation. And hesitation invites challenge. Strategic observers understand this pattern. If you feel the need to explain every decision in depth, they learn that pressure will make you talk more. They learn that disagreement will make you defend yourself. And once they know that, they don't debate your decision. They question your confidence. Another problem with over-explaining is that it opens negotiation where none was needed. When you present too much reasoning, people start picking apart the details instead of respecting the outcome. Instead of hearing the decision, they begin analyzing the explanation. Why this part? What about that option? Have you considered this instead? You unintentionally move the conversation from direction to debate. Clear authority works differently. Strong communicators state their position simply and directly. They give enough information to provide context, but not so much that the decision feels open for approval. Concise communication signals internal certainty. Certainty discourages unnecessary resistance. Another hidden danger of over-explaining is emotional exposure. The more you talk, the more your internal thinking becomes visible. Your doubts, your concerns, your priorities, and your pressure points all begin to surface. Information that was never necessary becomes available, and information creates leverage. Strategic communication protects your internal process. You share outcomes, not your entire mental journey. You reveal direction, not every uncertainty you considered along the way. This doesn't mean being cold or dismissive. It means being precise. Precision respects both your authority and the other person's attention. There is also a perception effect at work. People naturally associate brevity with confidence. When someone speaks clearly and stops, it signals that their position is settled. But when someone continues talking to reinforce the same point, it creates the impression that they are trying to convince rather than lead. The difference is subtle, but powerful. Leadership language is calm and contained. Approval-seeking language is long and repetitive. Another important principle is repetition control. Many people restate their decisions multiple times when they sense hesitation from others. They believe repeating will strengthen their position. In reality, repetition signals doubt. State clearly. Clarify once if needed, then move forward. When your words are limited and intentional, they carry more weight. When your communication is measured, people listen more carefully, because what is rare feels important. Over time, this habit changes how others respond to you. They stop expecting long explanations. They stop testing your decisions through endless questions. They learn that when you speak, the direction is already decided, and that perception protects your influence. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I speak with certainty. Number 5. Publicly labeling your weaknesses. Most people think self-criticism makes them humble and relatable. They openly say things like, "I'm bad at this," "I'm not confident," or "I'm terrible with pressure." They believe that by admitting their flaws, they appear honest, self-aware, and down to earth. But there is a hidden danger in publicly defining your weaknesses. When you label yourself, you are not just expressing a thought. You are creating a narrative. And once a narrative is spoken out loud, other people store it. The human mind remembers simple identity statements. It does not remember the context or the emotion behind them. It remembers the label. Later, when people evaluate you for responsibility, opportunity, or trust, that label quietly influences their judgment, not because they want to limit you, but because you defined the limitation yourself. Another risk is repetition. When you casually mention your weaknesses in conversations, meetings, or social settings, the label becomes reinforced. Each time you say it, it becomes more believable to others. Eventually, it stops sounding like a temporary challenge. It starts sounding like a fixed trait. And fixed traits shape expectations. If people expect weakness in a certain area, they stop offering you opportunities related to it. They stop relying on you under pressure. They adjust their perception of your capability without ever telling you. You don't lose influence because others criticized you. You lose it because you defined your own limits for them. There is also a strategic risk. Some individuals actively collect information about others' insecurities. When you openly describe your fears, doubts, or shortcomings, you are giving them a map of where you feel vulnerable. Later, in competitive situations, those areas become points of pressure. A casual statement like, "I hate public speaking," can turn into being pushed into uncomfortable presentations. Saying, "I'm not good with conflict," can lead to others challenging your boundaries more often. Information that felt harmless becomes leverage. This does not mean you should pretend to be perfect. The shift is not from honesty to denial. The shift is from careless labeling to precise framing. Instead of defining yourself by a weakness, define yourself by a process. There is a powerful difference between saying, "I'm bad at this," and saying, "I'm improving this." The first creates a fixed identity. The second creates a growth trajectory. People respond very differently to those two messages. Growth signals strength. Fixed weakness signals limitation. Another important factor is emotional tone. Many people speak negatively about themselves to lower expectations or avoid pressure. They believe that if others expect less, they will face less risk. But low expectations reduce perceived value, and perceived value determines influence. When your language consistently positions you as uncertain, incapable, or limited, people begin to interact with you at that level. Language shapes positioning. Positioning shapes opportunity. Strategic individuals speak about their development carefully. They acknowledge areas of growth when necessary, but they never turn temporary challenges into permanent identity statements. They control the narrative before the environment does, because once a narrative spreads, it is difficult to change. Your words become your reputation long before your performance is evaluated. Precision in self-definition protects your authority. You don't need to exaggerate your strengths. You simply need to avoid defining your weaknesses as who you are. Number 6. Giving access too quickly. Access is influence. Who gets your time, your attention, your personal thoughts, and your emotional world determines your psychological position. But most people give access too fast, without realizing the long-term cost. In the beginning of any connection, there is curiosity. People want to feel understood, accepted, and close. To create that feeling quickly, many individuals share personal details early. They reveal their history, their struggles, their fears, their ambitions, and their private experiences within a short period of time. It feels like connection. It feels like trust. But fast emotional exposure creates an illusion of depth, not real stability. Real trust is built through consistency over time. When access is given before someone has demonstrated reliability, you are investing emotional value without evidence of character. And once someone has deep insight into your thinking, your motivations, and your vulnerabilities, your psychological position changes. They understand you. And understanding creates leverage. Another problem with fast access is value perception. The human mind assigns importance based on scarcity and effort. When personal information, emotional openness, and attention are given immediately, they feel ordinary rather than meaningful. Nothing had to be earned. Nothing had to be proven. And what comes easily is rarely treated carefully. Selective disclosure works differently. When you reveal your personal world gradually in layers, each level of access feels intentional. It signals that emotional depth is not automatic. It is based on observation, consistency, and time. This changes the dynamic. Instead of immediate closeness, there is progressive trust, and progressive trust increases respect. Another hidden risk of early access is misjudgment. In the early stages of any interaction, people are presenting their best version. Their behavior is controlled. Their tone is positive. Their intentions appear aligned. But early behavior does not reveal character. Character appears during disagreement, pressure, inconvenience, and time. If deep access is given before those situations occur, you are trusting a version of the person that has not been tested yet. Strategic individuals observe patterns first. They watch how someone handles delays, conflict, boundaries, and responsibility. They pay attention to consistency between words and actions. Only when behavior proves stable does deeper access make sense. This protects emotional energy and psychological positioning. There is also a power dynamic involved. When you reveal everything quickly while the other person reveals very little, the emotional balance becomes uneven. They understand you deeply, but you know very little about them. That imbalance increases their control over the interaction. Balanced disclosure creates balanced influence. Another common mistake is mistaking intensity for connection. Long conversations, personal stories, and emotional moments can feel meaningful, but intensity does not equal reliability. Some people connect quickly and disappear just as quickly. Depth should follow consistency, not emotion. When your personal world is revealed slowly, your presence feels structured and intentional. People recognize that closeness is not automatic, it is built. And what is built gradually is valued more highly. Layered access also protects your boundaries. If someone shows inconsistency, poor judgment, or lack of discretion early, the cost to you is minimal because deeper information was never shared. This is not about distance, it is about timing. You are open, but not immediate. Warm, but not exposed. Engaged, but not fully accessible. Because emotional access is one of the highest forms of influence, and influence should never be given in a single moment. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I reveal in layers. Number 7. Confusing vulnerability with integrity. There is a dangerous misunderstanding in modern psychology, the belief that complete emotional exposure equals strength. People are told that sharing everything they feel, revealing every insecurity, and expressing every emotional reaction is a sign of authenticity. They believe that if they are fully open at all times, they are being honest, real, and trustworthy. But there is a critical difference between vulnerability and integrity. Integrity is controlled transparency. Vulnerability without control is emotional exposure. Integrity means your words, actions, and values are aligned. It means you are honest without being careless, open without being unstable, and real without being emotionally unpredictable. Uncontrolled vulnerability does something very different. It transfers emotional power to others. When you express every doubt, every fear, every moment of insecurity, people begin to see you not as transparent, but as emotionally dependent. Your reactions become predictable. Your pressure points become visible. Your emotional state becomes readable. And what is easily readable is easily influenced. Strong individuals understand something that most people ignore. Emotional expression is not weakness, but emotional leakage is. There is a difference between sharing when necessary and releasing everything without filtering. Unfiltered emotional expression often comes from a desire for validation. People want reassurance. They want others to say, "You're right, you're strong," or "You're not alone." But when validation becomes a habit, your emotional stability becomes dependent on external response. That is not strength. That is psychological dependence. Integrity, on the other hand, is quiet stability. You do not deny your emotions, but you process them internally before expressing them externally. You choose the right time, the right person, and the right level of disclosure. This creates emotional authority. When you speak about something serious, it carries weight because it is rare, measured, and intentional. Another hidden problem with constant vulnerability is perception. People respect emotional depth, but they are drawn to emotional control. When someone reacts intensely to every difficulty, every criticism, or every uncertainty, they begin to appear fragile rather than honest. And fragility changes how others interact with you. They may become cautious around you, avoid difficult conversations, or in some cases, take advantage of your emotional sensitivity. Strategic emotional control prevents this. Instead of reacting immediately, you pause. Instead of expressing every feeling, you choose what is useful to communicate. Instead of seeking emotional relief through others, you develop internal regulation. This does not make you cold. It makes you stable, and stability creates trust. Even powerful thinkers like Niccolo Machiavelli understood that perception shapes influence. He wrote that a leader should appear compassionate, honest, and human, but must always maintain control over what is revealed and when. Because influence depends not only on who you are, but on what others are allowed to see. There is also a timing factor. Emotional honesty is powerful when the relationship has depth and trust, but when strong emotions are expressed too early or too frequently, it creates emotional pressure rather than connection. People feel responsible for your emotional state, and when people feel responsible, they begin to distance themselves. Integrity avoids this by creating emotional self-sufficiency. You share your perspective, not your instability. You express your values, not your emotional turbulence. You communicate strength, even when discussing difficulty. Another important distinction is between honesty and emotional dumping. Honesty is clear, calm, and purposeful. Emotional dumping is reactive, heavy, and uncontrolled. One builds respect, the other creates discomfort. Strong presence comes from emotional restraint combined with selective honesty. You are real, but not exposed. Expressive, but not reactive. Human, but not emotionally dependent. Because the strongest people are not those who reveal everything. The strongest people are those who feel deeply, process privately, and speak intentionally. Here is the truth most people never understand. You don't lose influence because others are smarter than you. You don't lose power because they are more aggressive, and you don't fall behind because the world is unfair. You lose power when you become easy to read. When your emotions are exposed too quickly, when your reactions are predictable, when your struggles, doubts, and pressure points are visible to anyone who is paying attention. Because once people understand your emotional patterns, they know how to manage you. They know what triggers you. They know what makes you defensive. They know where your limits are. And the moment someone knows your limits, your influence begins to shrink. Real strength is not about hiding who you are. It's about controlling what you reveal, when you reveal it, and who earns access to it. Honesty is not weakness. Kindness is not weakness. Emotion is not weakness. Careless exposure is. Power grows when your words are measured, when your reactions are delayed, when your emotional world is disciplined instead of broadcast. This is what strategic presence looks like. You become calm under pressure. You become steady under observation. You become difficult to predict. And when you become difficult to predict, you become difficult to control. This doesn't make you cold, it makes you precise. The goal is not distance, the goal is control. The goal is not to disconnect from people. The goal is to connect without surrendering your position. Because the strongest individuals are not the loudest, the most emotional, or the most expressive. They are the most composed. If this video helped you see your blind spots, take a moment right now. Like this video so more people can learn how to protect their influence. Share it with someone who needs stronger boundaries. And if you're serious about mastering power, discipline, and psychological control, subscribe to the channel. This is where strength is built, one insight at a time. Drop this final affirmation in the comments. I control my exposure. Remember this: when you speak less, observe more, and reveal with intention, your presence changes. And when your presence changes, the balance of power changes too.